Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, rising from the flames that dies only to burn again. Let me dance in the rhythm of your flame. If I burn, let me die to burn again. If I burn, let me die to burn again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Herbal Knowledge Keepers. Myself, Blue Star Deerwomon, and my co-host D'Coda Grannywoman. And today we're really excited with this springtime season. It's all about gardening from A through Z. And we invite you to come into the chat room or even make a call and join us in this conversation. But if you have questions about planting or just every aspect of it, just come on, jump into the chat room and we'll work with you. And again, this show has always been founded upon the Herbal Database. And that's what D'Coda will be demonstrating as we talk about this topic. She will continually bring this up on this show, and it is accessible. You too can have access to this database and learn how the cross-referencing and the different content that is there and how to use it, maneuver it for us, ordinary folks, professional folks, anyone and everyone who is wanting to go deeper into the understanding of herbology, from a scientific approach to a holistic and east-west understanding. So welcome to our show today. And D'Coda, I'll let you take it from here and give us our intro.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Blue, you left out something important. And it fits with this program. This is also a production of Full Bloom Productions. We mustn't forget that.
Thank you.
So
I could speak a little bit about that.
Okay.
All right. And we're probably, I forgot, because we're looking to how to umbrella this and we're package ourselves. But Full Bloom Productions is the umbrella for the Herbal Knowledge Keepers and also our other program, Get Lit, on every other Tuesday. Full Bloom Productions is a nonprofit 501c3 organization with a focus on empowering women's voices. And so the URL that you see on the broadcast window for Full Bloom Nonprofit, Grateful, that is for any and all of you that want to support Get Lit and Herbal Knowledge Keepers. That's where you can make a donation to our 501c3. And if you're in a position to make a larger donation, you can have tax exemption as well. And so we're going to continue to develop this, and CCN is going to work with us in helping us to get this presentation more clarity. So Full Bloom Production, Ozark Art, artists and healers. And thank you, D'Coda, for reminding me of that.
When spring comes and it's gardening season, we get very one-track minded, and our activities are governed by gardening weather. So I'm assuming that most of you watching either are gardening already or want to garden. Since this is an herbal database, the focus here is on herb gardening, but I have to say, I myself, and I think most of us, don't differentiate very much between herb gardens and food gardens. Ideally, they're kind of commingled, partly because herbs are foods and vice versa, but they, in terms of companion planting and how they will help each other be healthier and get rid of pest infestations and build soil, it's really a good idea to have herbs growing in your vegetable gardens or around your fruit trees. Just one example, peach trees do really well with catnip or alyssum growing underneath them. That's a great companion planting. Helps make a healthier peach tree less likely to pick up any fungal diseases. And so just think in terms of mixing and matching. So we're going to get into the database and show you how you can access all kinds of information, from really general to very specific information about what kind of soil or sunlight or fertilizer different plants need. And right now we are going to be focused primarily on the medicinal herbs. So I typically show the database, and we'll go through it together. I'll give a few pointers for people who are new to it. If you are new, I recommend that you watch the first episode of Herbal Knowledge Keepers, where we spend a lot of time showing you how to use this. So I'm going to go into a screen share now, if I remember how to do that. There we go. All right.
And that introduction actually is episode 1.
Yeah. All right, here we are. So this is the Herbal Database, and you can find it at herbaldatabase.org. This is the opening screen, and if you are new to it and you've just signed up, be sure to read this section on how to use it. I'm clicking these arrows to bring the information screen up and down. And then to get to the herbal gardening, one of the quickest ways is just to go up here at the top where I have it pinned for quick access. And we're going to click on that and bring it down. And these are the major categories that we're going to cover in the herbal gardening. So first of all, just again on moving around, remember, lift the screen up with that upward arrow and down with this one. And these are just a few things that you'll find in this part of the database. How to tell what kind of soil type you have. That is kind of important. How to test your soil, build it, how to garden in different types of soil, how to make your own potting mixes and soil cubes, then composting, compost tea, worm beds, biochar, and how to locate your garden. Then, of course, we get into design. That's a lot of fun. How to germinate seed, and that's a big deal when we're talking about herbs, because a lot of the herb seeds are not that easy to germinate. So one of the big mistakes that beginning gardeners make when they're growing herbs is to grow their herbs from seed. Now, there are a few exceptions, but a lot of these herbs are just really tricky, and I'll show you where you can find out how to germinate them. But it's better to start out with some plants that are already growing, and there are a lot of places where you can get some, rosemary, thyme, different herbs, and I'll show you sources for more exotic things like where to get Godicola plants and things like that. And then how to manage your seedlings, how to maintain your garden, And then we get into details for growing specific herbs. And then, of course, a lot more than that. So we'll bring that down. I'm not going to really get into aquaponics too much right now, but if you're interested in that, it's a good idea to check out the difference between hydroponics and aquaponics. They're not exactly the same thing. Now, this is kind of like a dream space that I just had to throw in there. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that is really beautiful. Appropriately named Jellyfish Gardens.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
I know. And then here's just a little illustration to show you what's involved in aquaponics. So all of these headings have links. So these links up here, you can just click on them and they'll take you to an article or a video. And I'm going to lower this screen now so we can move on. But, you know, in some areas, aquaponics or hydroponics is really useful because you just don't have the means to grow outdoors. We don't usually grow the medicinal herbs this way, but it is there because this part of the database is probably going to grow and grow and grow to include all kinds of crops. Again, food is medicine. So the vegetables, oh my gosh, I just read today about how carrots cure cancer. So, you know, it's like, what is the dividing line? You just can't say.
Yeah.
And then for people who are doing container gardening, you know, this really works quite well. It's a little different. Here's some beautiful examples of what you can do. And here's another. Isn't that pretty?
I have some containers, but I'm in white buckets. They're not as pretty as these baskets.
Now this one I really like. This is a miniature. They were brilliant the way they did this. This is a pot.
Oh, that's
and look
adorable.
at that. Yeah.
Look at that. It's like a little dollhouse garden.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Yeah. So with containers, you really can grow just about anything. If you have some old shoes that you don't want anymore, you can put soil in them and grow some plants.
Right.
Boots work pretty well. So you'll have, there are a lot of ideas here on different types of containers. And so this one, you can grow 2 acres of food in a shipping container.
Oh, you have a picture of that?
Well, not a very good one.
Wow.
But yeah, you can. And so these are the links. Actually, what this is a project, and I would suggest you look at it. It's a project where they're actually prepping shipping containers with everything to make them grow this much food. And I'm not sure if it's a Kickstarter, but
that's interesting.
Go take a look at that. This is kind of a trend now, you know, where people are growing food all over the place.
Right.
And so we aren't limited. If you don't have a big yard or a yard at all, this is really the way to go. Here's, if you have just an apartment, let's see here. There we go. And let me bring this up. So this is a video that shows you about different kinds of containers and instructions on growing herbs in your apartment.
What is she loosening the pot? Is that what that is? That she has her foot on it.
Let me see.
Like it's a soft shell.
Yeah.
It's a soft shell and loosening the roots.
Okay. Yeah. I doubt that she's just crushing it.
Well, you know, I just thought a flash of the mind would probably be good to just point that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is how you can smash your plant. It's okay. They can handle it.
And then, you know, if you have containers, it is fun to do something with the design aspect. So this is a whole instructional video on how do you think about design with your pots? How do you put it together? What are the concepts so that you can make it really, really beautiful? Bucket gardening, yes. Now, you know, and I've done that before. I'm not really crazy about the aesthetics of it, but, you know, it works. And Here's an example
look at
of a strawberry tower. There are different ways to make strawberry towers.
Wow.
But this one is made out of buckets, and of course you could put all kinds of things in them.
Oh my gosh, now I hadn't seen that one. That's really cool.
Yeah. And this whole, there's an article, let's see, a few articles here about how to set up self-watering bucket systems. So, and some of them are kind of elaborate, but if you have the skill, this is really great. The self-watering bucket container, converting a 5-gallon bucket into a mini garden. So yeah, we can do all this stuff. Here's if you have friends who still drink soda, and you have these kind of bottles or even water bottles in plastic, this is a video on how to make a vertical water bottle garden out of these plastic containers. It's pretty cool. I love vertical gardening. Here are different techniques that you will be able to use in your container gardening. So there's a lot of instruction here to make the most out of those containers and make them really productive and beautiful and inexpensive. I love this section, creative containers, household items as garden pots. And here's just one. This is, you never have to water. This is something that pretty cool. You never have to water that.
Because it's getting the condensation?
Yeah, it's like a biodome, a mini biodome.
That is really cool. What kind of plant is that in there?
I can't tell. It's kind of hard to tell.
I mean, any plants could do that?
Well,
not
probably,
bigger than that container, right?
Probably something that likes to have that kind of moist air around it.
Yeah.
That's one of the other mistakes beginning herb gardeners make is with the water. You do not water herbs like you do houseplants. With houseplants, a lot of the habit is to give them a good watering once a week, for the most part.
Yeah.
But with most herbs, especially, if you've got good drainage in the pot, which you do want, if you're doing container gardening.
Okay.
Actually, even outdoors.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because my herbs are right beside some of my veggies.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm watering the veggies.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. With the herbs, what they need, for the most part, there are exceptions. And you'll see when we get into soil types, some want dry soil, some want moist soil, and that kind of thing. But this is especially true for the herbs that are in containers. They need moderate watering daily. Just a little water daily.
Just a little, yeah.
Yeah, don't overdo it.
Okay.
Because pots dry out. We're talking about a pot that has good drainage.
Yeah.
And for drainage, if you'll recall, you are living in a pine forest. And I suggested that you gather those pine cones up.
Right.
And put them in the bottom of your pots. Did you do that?
No, I actually had so many rocks, I used rocks.
But the pine cones are better.
Yeah?
If you can get them, the pine cones are the best thing to put in the bottom of your pot for drainage, because for one thing, they're open, like there's air.
Oh, they have all those little leafies.
Yeah, those little kind of scaly things.
Right.
Those are kind of open, so there's air movement, and then they just kind of gradually degrade, and they help to keep that soil healthy. So,
well, I'm not finished with my pot planting and bucket planting, so
okay, so get some of
I
those.
still have that.
Gather up pine cones and use those in the bottom. So anyway, let's see, where are we? Okay, here's on watering your containers, shade for container gardens, overwintering potted plants. Now, one of the things about light is interesting. Let's see, this is a video. I'll just tell you about one of the tricks to figure out what kind of light you have going into your plants. This is a plant that's indoors or maybe even outdoors. You put your hand between the light source and your plant. Like let's say the light's coming through a window.
Mhm.
and you put your hand between the light and the window. If there's a clear line in the shadow of your hand where, it's a distinct edge
Mhm.
in the shadow on the pot,
Mhm.
that shows you have good direct sun. But if it's instead of a good hard edge, you've got kind of like a fuzzy edge,
Mhm.
then you've got indirect sun on the plant,
Mhm.
okay?
That's good. Okay.
So there are all kinds of tricks like that, tips, guidance in this section for dealing with the container gardens, fertilizing containers, how to do it with perennials, how to grow an herb garden in a grocery bag, how to make an herb terrarium, how to hang plant pouches. I love these too. And then about overwintering those potted plants. Let's see if we have a good picture here. This is another video. Oh yeah, there they are. Aren't those cool?
Mm. Nice.
Yeah. More vertical gardening. I just love that. All right, so let's move out of containers. And we're just going to go down the list here. So cover crops. Now, if you're growing outdoors, the worst thing for soil is bare soil. You never have bare soil. You've got to have it covered either with good thick compost and mulch or a cover crop. And there's a benefit to cover crops. That's stuff like your buckwheat, alfalfa, that sort of thing, because the roots that are going down into that are feeding the soil microorganisms and helping to build humus. And so, that's a little bit
like
different.
Chickweed would be a good cover crop?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, definitely, because you can use it. Sometimes you want to be adding nitrogen, and that's when you would have a cover crop like alfalfa that you would turn over, or clover to add nitrogen to your soil. But a lot of the herbs, as you'll see when we get into the soil requirements, don't want a rich soil. But so you need to know what you're planning on growing there, right?
Yeah, I've always heard that, like herbs, almost like a rough, dry soil.
So, it's divided up in the database to show you. Some do, but some really want a rich, like the kind of plants that grow in the shade in the forest, like bloodroot or golden seal. They're used to having a lot of litter, forest litter and shade. And so you have to kind of reproduce that kind of environment for them. And so that's a kind of a richer soil where there's been a lot of natural composting for many years and a good mycorrhizal fungi in the soil. We'll get into that too. So this is about the cover crops. And if you want to learn how to do that, if you have raised beds, how to do it for over the wintering. Over winter, a lot of the stuff's been taken off the bed, so you don't have to just mulch. You can raise a cover crop over the winter. And then undercover farming, I'm not going to get into this too much now, but that's the section. Now this eco landscaping is really important for anybody that's developing a piece of land, whether it's your own 30-acre property, or you're creating a little eco-village, or any kind of community. You don't just go in and just start building without understanding the land. This kind of gets into permaculture. So with eco-landscaping, you really are paying attention to the way the water moves, to the way that the topography of the land is, all of that sort of thing. So in some places, for example, if you watch it, you'll see that there's an area where a lot of rainwater is collecting. And you don't want that rainwater to just run off. For one thing, if it's running off, it's taking topsoil, and if you're applying any kind of fertilizers like phosphorus, for example, some people are using, like the regular fertilizers from the hardware store, or the garden store, with phosphorus, nitrogen, that sort of thing. If you're using those and the rainwater is carrying that, especially the phosphorus, this is a big concern because we've been using a lot of phosphorus in agriculture that's been extracted from the earth, and the rains and rivers and streams are carrying that phosphorus into the ocean, and we're losing it. And there's a concern that we may run out of phosphorus.
Wow.
So anyway, that's one of many reasons to create a rainwater garden. And so this video will give you instructions on how to do that. You can harvest your rain. Oh, this isn't the rain garden. This is just getting your rainwater. Okay. We'll get into garden types in a minute here. So here are the ecological basics. This is a good place to start with this lecture series on what do you need to know to get started to figure out how to design your property so that its ecology is kept intact.
So there it's like showing a slant. So
yeah, most properties will have a slant.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but there will be. And so this is a big thing in permaculture with key lines and things like that, where you know the topography, you watch the way the water's flowing,
Mm-hmm.
and you design your gardens, your structures, everything around this, with all of this in mind, so that there isn't any destruction of the ecosystem, or you minimize it, or you can actually enhance it and create, something that's useful. So this section, you can do landscape, if you like to landscape with mosses. Here's low impact construction, very important. And I really like this one, repairing our rivers. So if you have property near a river, you can actually help to undo a lot of the damage. Our rivers are in trouble. So here's how you can restore and repair your river, okay? So obviously, herbalists are interested in a whole lot more than just growing and using the herbs themselves. We're interested in the big picture, conserving the nature, giving support to nature. And go ahead.
So you're basically addressing the topic of permaculture when we start looking at the entire community and how it's a system.
That's one term. Permaculture has kind of become a catch-all term in a way. The eco-landscaping is more, you could call it a subdivision of that in a way, because, not everyone is having to figure out their land. Like you have an already, a regular house in a housing development. You're not going to be thinking about that. So but you can still do permaculture. So
I see.
So water conservation, landscape design, understanding and exploring what roots are doing under the ground. This is pretty thorough. Even if you're not doing eco-landscaping, it's pretty cool to know what the roots of your plants are doing underground.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to just, be some helpful background information. So then we move down to fertilizing. And with herbs, one of the good things is that most herbs don't need a lot of fertilizer. So that's where you do want to be careful with your food crops. So that if you have a crop where you're fertilizing it pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also growing herbs there, they'll grow. But the problem is that they just get really lush and weak in a way. Their medicinal properties are not developed very well in that condition, because
you're not strengthening their growth tendency and rootedness, right?
No, you are strengthening their growth and rootedness, and that's the problem, because most of the medicinal properties in plants are something that's called secondary metabolites, And those are created in response to stress. And so when these herbs are having to defend themselves in one way or another, they create this huge range of secondary metabolites that protect them, that when we take those plants, those same things are helping us with the different kinds of stressors that we're suffering from. So when you are growing them in these really lush conditions, they'll be big and juicy and leafy, but the flavor's probably going to be weaker. They'll look beautiful, but they just, it's maybe a nice little food crop. If you're growing basil in a rich tomato bed, that's a good companion, and the basil is helping the tomatoes. But it probably, if it's a really fertile bed, and you'll have big leaves of basil, but it's probably not going to be quite as tasty and strong as basil that's grown in somewhere else where it's not being babied so much. Although you might not baby your tomatoes. So here's a little bit on that. High fertility soil tends to produce excessive amounts of foliage that's poor in flavor. However, and there's always exceptions, chervil, fennel, and lovage require moderate amounts of fertilizer. So anyway, this link takes you to a lot of information on how to fertilize.
Yeah, I remember one time I was nursing these tomato plants along, and I believe I added fertilizer, and they got plush. It was in buckets on a porch, and they got plush and dark green. They just looked luscious, and they didn't produce any fruit. There was no tomatoes, and I was just like, I don't get this. And then finally, it was explained to me that the plant actually got lazy.
Yeah,
it was so plush and taken care of. It was like, why bother producing fruit? I'm fine. Yeah. There was no stress.
Yeah,
is what
they need it. And in fact, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll get into the section on soil microbes. But going back to phosphorus for a second, in conventional agriculture, the big farms where they're growing tons of corn, for example, they apply these chemical fertilizers, phosphorus being one of them, and so consistently that they're what's happening is the plants are becoming dependent on them. Normally, corn has a relationship with different types of fungi that grow underground called mycorrhizae, and it's the mycorrhizae that mine all of the minerals and feed them to the plant. And the mycorrhiza mines especially phosphorus from the soil and feeds it to the corn. So because we've been applying phosphorus, the corn is no longer having a need to even associate with mycorrhiza. And so there are now corns in existence that have no relationship at all to the mycorrhiza. And there's a worry that because if we run out of phosphorus or unable to acquire some of these chemical fertilizers, that normally corn gets a lot of its fertilizer from the mycorrhizal fungi relationship, and they won't do that because that relationship has ended. They don't know about it. And so there's even, I think it's the USDA, there's a department of the USDA that's testing seeds to determine if they've lost their ability to acquire nutrients from soil microorganisms. And they're really worried about it. And they're trying to look at seed that hasn't lost that and keep that seed around.
Well, that sounds like human. Human is slowly losing its understanding of how to resource from our organic environment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what would a further analogy be that what have we stopped doing, recreating in ourselves? So now we're having to take all these supplements. We've gotten so dependent on our supplements. Our immune system is getting sluggish, if not obsolete, in creating what we need.
That can happen. That's a whole other story that we'll have to do another show on.
Yeah. But just that occurred to me. But to go back to the phosphates, what exactly is a phosphate and how is it created to begin with?
Oh dear, that's another show too, but it's a mineral.
Okay.
But that's a good example. Like, let's say you were in the database and you go, I want to know what
phosphate is. So there it is.
So
Dakota's typing it in.
I'm typing into the search box, and we've got several different things coming up. I didn't even finish typing it, but we could take a look. Okay, there's phosphate, and we also see some. Well, we won't. We're taking a detour, so we'll just try not to go too far.
Well, but then we can demonstrate the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where you could learn about phosphate, all right? So you learn about phosphate, you get it answered.
Oh, I see. It's got all those chemical diagrams.
Well, but the database also teaches you how to read those if you want to. I mean, that's a way of drawing out a molecule.
Yeah, stay there for a moment. But just that, a phosphate is an inorganic chemical and a salt, a phosphoric acid in organic chemistry. Phosphate, yeah.
So a lot of these terms, this is where you might see some of these terms and you go, oh my God, what does that mean? That's part of why I started building this, so that I wouldn't have to go searching all over the place trying to answer these. So you can look up these terms right here. So if you go, well, what is an ester? Because that was talking about esters. All right, you can just go right here. And now
it's like your own little Wikipedia in a database.
Yeah, about the kinds of things that we need to know as herbalists and as humans taking care of our planet and ourselves.
Right.
So down here at the bottom, you see this is a breadcrumb trail of where we've just been. Right. And I want to go back to fertilizing again. So I'm just going to click on that and it takes us right back.
Nice.
So here, a lot of us are big advocates of using something called biochar. This is made from basically, if most people have made a fire and they've seen how the wood kind of turns into a charcoal. And there's a way of preparing charcoal from wood that we call it biochar, that turns out to be a fabulous soil amendment that it allows the soil to aggregate and build, and it makes a home for the kinds of soil microbes that we need to build soil. So
like, are you saying like you break it up and spread it, or you mix it in?
You mix it. Well, you can do either one, but sometimes some people put a layer of it. In South America, I forget if it was Peru or Chile, but they found a valley where the one of the ancient, it might have been Inca, or I think it was even before the Inca, where they had evidence of a very, very fertile agricultural valley that was just amazing, the fertility of the soil. When they got into it, they saw that they had been putting charcoal deep into the soil and using charcoal as their amendment. And the soil is still, it's an ancient soil, but it's still really, really, really good. So that's why we learned about using biochar. And now it's just, here's the biochar, the oldest new thing.
When I hear us talking about char, is this related to like activated charcoal? Are we in the same genre here?
Well, I mean, in a way, it's
or it's processed.
Yeah, it's processed a little bit differently, but
basically,
it doesn't have to be broken down, and it's not necessarily super powdered. But even if you took, I used to, when I lived in the wilderness, I burned wood for heat and cooking and stuff, and whenever I found this, I was really happy when it didn't all burn and I had a little charcoal.
Right.
And I would just put it in my garden, I didn't try to break it up real fine, but I would just bury it in the soil And wherever it is, it's going to be gathering together the different families of microbes. It's kind of a little bit complicated chemically, but it doesn't change the chemistry directly of the soil.
Right.
It just creates an environment that allows the
It
natural.
attracts the natural need.
Yeah. Every teaspoon of good soil that hasn't been totally killed contains, one teaspoon contains more microbes than there are people on the earth.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And we want to keep it that way. And we want diversity. So this is why when we're growing our herbs, our food plants, we don't want to just grow a whole lot of the same thing. The more you can mix it up, the better, because the more diverse it is on the top of the soil, the more diverse the microbes are.
Can you identify, like, by looking at the soil? Like, I always look at my soil, and when I get that deep black, I always feel like, okay, there's a richness. But is there a way that's well microbed?
Well,
Can you look at the soil and see it?
No, I mean, not necessarily.
You have to test it.
Yeah, you would really have to have it tested, but but that's in the right direction. And mostly what they're looking at is what's called aggregate. It's like there is a type of a protein that these microbes create that helps to glue particles of soil together into aggregate. And that's another really, really important part of building good soil.
And just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about worms. I mean, we always get excited when there's worms in our soil.
Totally, yeah. So here, if you want to make fertilizer from worm castings, this section teaches you how to do that. Here's an entire book on how Earthworms Fertilize Soil by Charles Darwin, if you want to read what he had to say. But here's just an easy, I like the easy things.
Yeah, I do too.
Here's an easy way to make a free worm factory.
Alrighty, there we go, another bucket.
Yep. Now, one thing to be careful of is this biosolids and sludge, because that's something that's being sold for fertilizer in garden stores. And that's really potentially very dangerous. Now, if you make your own from healthy human manure composting, that's okay. But this biosolids, or sludge that's being made commercially, contains a lot of drugs and chemicals pass through the systems of human beings these days. And those are in the sludge, sludge being human waste. Those are in the sludge, those chemicals, the drugs, the antibiotics, everything that they're taking. And here's an article.
And so you're saying this is made from human manure?
Yeah. Commercially. And
Really?
You can buy it in your gardening store, It'll biosolids, and they're being used on farms, and it's being called organic, but it's containing a lot of
if somebody's on pharmaceuticals, it's feeding.
And most people are on pharmaceuticals.
Or even if they're eating the mainstream food.
Yeah. Or if they have mercury amalgams, heavy metals in their systems, that's in it. So it's not safe. And here's an article that explains the EPA has okayed it, and it's kind of not a good idea. So be aware of that. And if you want it, make your own from healthy people. Here are healthy soil amendments. So if you want to build your soil up, and these are the amendments that you can use. So this is another instructional video that takes you through all of the how to amend your soil in a good way. So anyway, just remember though, for most of the herbs, the fertilizing isn't all that important. In the Ozarks though, our soil is low in mineral content, and so it's a good idea to amend Ozark soil with some type of green sand or some type of a good mineral supplement. So growing, this is a whole section, growing herbs for beginners. I'm not going to go through all of that.
I just want to go back to what you said. What's a good example of a mineral supplement?
Green sand.
Green sand?
Rock, there's a rock phosphate.
Okay.
You can, and a lot of those are available through, if you have like the organic, doesn't even have to be organic gardening, but most gardening supply stores will have some of those.
Okay.
So you can go through this. There's a whole kind of like a mini course on growing herbs for beginners that goes step by step. I'm not going to go through all of that, but I know a lot of you probably want to grow mushrooms because we're learning they're so good for us. And so here's a whole section to teach you how to grow mushrooms. Now, at home, the most commonly grown mushrooms are the cremini, the enoki, maitake, portobello, oyster, shiitake, and white button mushroom. Now, don't thumb your nose up at that white button mushroom. That's the one that you've probably been buying forever in the grocery store and think, that's probably nothing.
Yeah.
But it turns out that the white button mushroom has a profound effect on the immune system. And a fairly lasting effect. So eating those white button mushrooms is really, really healthy. And this is just a little bit of an overview diagram of mushroom cultivation here. But the instructions are, it's links and videos that you're going to go to. And here's some more specifics. So mushrooms, this is a video instruction on growing mushrooms in your backyard, how to do oyster mushrooms, more specifically wine cap and forest mushroom production. So you can get into, and let me just show you here. See, everything that's linked up is associated with this object in the middle. That's our focus topic, right? So we see all kinds of things around it. Up here, we see it's linked to something called mushrooms. This is another color. And so that's one way that you could, if you really want to learn about mushrooms, I've linked this section to that so that you could learn more about mushrooms. This is part of the botany course. And so here's the taxonomy, how to preserve your specimens, how to use a microscope with them, spore prints, all of that. So you could really get into mushrooms, including the magic of mushrooms here with this documentary.
What was, D'Coda, do you recall the mushrooms that we were discussing over on the Eco Village land? What mushroom were we going to grow in the crop houses?
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what that was. I know it was like a, kind of like a specialty mushroom.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Okay.
And then you see it keeps on going because here we see it's connected to the edible wild mushrooms. The blue color is for wild foods. So if you went, well, it's going to take me a while. What mushrooms can I eat that are growing around here? These are all of the edible wild mushrooms, and you could go and learn about these here. Okay. So anyway, this is how we can really drill down into something that we're interested in. But let's go back to herb gardening and get out of the mushroom section. I'm starting to add some things for high-tech gardening because some of it's pretty cool. And
this is like advanced greenhouses and
tools like let's see. I don't want to start clicking around in here. I'm just starting this section, but some of it is pretty cool. But it's like high tech, so you got to have money. House plants. And here's just a documentary or an instructional video on working with your houseplants. Really good to have them because they clean indoor air, and indoor air is very polluted. Now, see, now that's a good thing to show you. I clicked on that. It didn't go down. If that ever happens to you, I'm pulling my mouse over this line. You see how it changes. So now I'm going to hold down the control and pull it to where I want it. So you can control the info screen that way too. Whoops. Now what did I just do? Okay, well, if that ever happens to you,
contact you.
I'm going to click it up again and just repeat. Maybe it'll click down by itself. No. Okay.
It's having a moment.
Yeah.
It's all right. We all have those moments.
Well, that's interesting. Oh, maybe it's just slow. The internet is just being weird. That's happens too.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, we like those house plants. Maintenance, big. It's fun to plant, it's fun to eat, but the maintaining part, you know, we're always kind of looking for how to do that in a better way, less time.
That's why we're having high-tech gardening is coming. The high-tech gardening is, how do I just push a button on my phone app and it waters and takes care of itself? I mean, that essentially is what we're doing. We're trying to
make it easier. And, you know, certain things do make it easier. For example, mulch. You know, good mulching makes it a lot easier. So here's a maintenance schedule. That's pretty nice to have. And so what do you do in the springtime? You know, what do you need to do in the autumn? So the database is going to show you, like here's a native landscape maintenance schedule. And so you can just go through these different seasons and see, well, what do I need to do in the spring? You know, and this is the spring. So here's a monthly maintenance checklist that I'm clicking on right now.
Oh, that's good. Could be looking at that.
I don't know how long it's going to take to load, so I'm going to...
Oh, is it going to a...
yeah, I just clicked on a web page.
Okay.
This is what...
and it opens in another page, right?
Yeah, it opens on another tab.
Okay.
So, well, it's still kind of loading and it's taking too long, but anyway, so here's... I'm not going to take too much time on that because it's still loading. But anyway, you see, all of these are links. It'll take you someplace to show you about your maintenance schedule.
Well, D'Coda, just off the top of your head, I mean, you know this so well. Maybe you can give us 6 pointers on what's maintenance right now in the spring.
Well, depending on where you are, you know, and how you're starting your seeds and things like that, it can vary. You know, if you've got seedlings if you're doing them in flats or trays, a lot of that's going to be in your cold frame or your, if you have like a little greenhouse thing, a lot of your work's going to be there right now. Okay. But out in the garden itself, let's say you've got plant beds, hopefully you mulched them over the winter time. So this is April 16, 17, something like that. And let's say you had your garden beds mulched. It's time to start warming that soil up. And so you start to pull the mulch back? Pull the mulch and let the sun start getting to it and heating it up. You don't want to do it too long. But pull the mulch back, let the soil start warming. And some of if there are weed seeds there, they'll start growing. And so one of the things you can do is, if you don't have to plant there yet, I like to plant in a seed bed and transplant. So I'll pull the mulch off, let the sun get to it, warm it up. The weeds will start growing, and then you can just kind of cut those weeds down.
So like in the gardens that I did last year, the cardboard is under the mulch, so you pull the cardboard back now.
Maybe, it depends, like right where it is now, I wouldn't do that. I'm just going to leave that there. But in another part, it depends on what you're planning on planting. Some
As you need the bed, maybe uncover and prepare.
if you're going to need the bed, some of them you're going to want to be warming that soil up. So for certain things where, like let's say you want to plant your tomatoes, you've got tomato plants going, or basil or something like that, that needs warm soil.
Right.
And you pick where you're going to put those things. If it's mulch, pull that soil back because it's got to have warm soil, and it's going to stay cool too long if you just leave the mulch on it.
Gotcha.
But you're going to put the mulch back.
Okay.
Right.
So you're just kind of parting it.
Yeah. And this time of year, I'm usually getting my paths covered. I don't like to weed on paths, so I'll lay down cardboard or something like that over the paths and then cover that with some kind of like wood chips or something.
So it's like you're getting prepared before the overgrowth,
before the weeds
happens.
Yeah, starting, getting the, if you're making like a weed compost tea, getting that kind of thing set up, getting workstations set up, getting your plant labels made, that kind of preparation stuff, all your tools cleaned, all, your workspace is organized. So you're just ready to go, and getting your supplies is, if you didn't do that yet, it's time.
Right. Oh, that's good. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and maintenance, pruning, you were saying the other day how you hate to pinch back your herbs, but
well, it's those when you put the seedlings in and you have to thin them.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not the only one. I've heard this with other people.
I hate it too.
Because they look so healthy.
Yeah. And you feel sad.
And that's what I have to do today.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Anyway, it covers the kind of problems you'll have with herbs indoors, outdoors. This is all part of maintenance, pruning, how to save seed. What about watering? So, here is general watering is down here, how to measure soil moisture. These are all charts and things to help you understand how do you know if there's enough water in the soil or not? Where is it going? So you can read through that. Then things change in the winter, and there's such a thing as dry farming, and this is a good article about the drought myth. So where it's dry, you do things differently, and it can be done. You don't have to be irrigating really crazy. Mulching things help in certain kind of plants. So weeds, this part, we misunderstand these plants. They're the guardians of the soil. So if you want to learn to appreciate your weeds more, read this section. They are the guardians of the soil. I'm always happy to see weeds if there's nothing else going on. You just, you do want to have a compatible relationship, but don't. And most of the weeds that grow, you'll discover, are edible foods or medicinal herbs. There's hardly anything there where you're going to go, well, that's no good. But things get too crowded, so you got to control it.
Like our popular dandelion. Did you see there's a picture going around in Facebook, and it's commemorating the dandelion. When you see this, don't pick it. Don't step on it.
Yeah. So here's about weed control. Again, this is just a in-depth article that teaches you all about controlling weed germination. One of the worst things to do is to turn your soil over because you're burying the weed seeds to grow.
Yeah.
That's why we do no-till.
Right.
You might till once to get things going, but then ideally sheet mulching instead of tilling ever. And here's about sheet mulch and how to do it.
But I've always liked aerating. When you cultivate just the top, you just aerate it.
Yeah, but you can do that
without turning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the soil, the plants can do a lot of that too. And anyway, so mulching, all that's covered here. Weeds, there's something called a dynamic accumulator. These are certain plants like the dandelion, for example, yellow dock. these are plants that have deep roots that pull minerals up to the top layers of the soil where other plants, your food crops, can get them. So different plants have different depths of where the roots go. Like some are just in the upper 6 inches, some go down deeper and deeper. So if they're just growing in the upper 6 to 8 inches, they need a way to have the minerals that are deeper pulled up to them. And so certain plants do that, and they're called dynamic accumulators. For example, an oak tree, I always like to have an oak tree in the middle of my garden that I grow stuff around. Those roots of the oak tree go really deep, and they pull up calcium and other minerals from the soil to the top layers where the plants can get to them. And so dandelion is a good example of a dynamic.
Yeah, they have a long root.
Yeah, and they are a dynamic accumulator. So what happens is their leaves die and fall off. You leave them on the ground, on the soil. Don't take them up. Because as those minerals are in those leaves,
They'll go right back to the earth.
yeah, they go back into the soil.
What about pine trees? Do they have deep roots?
Yeah, but the problem with pine is that they also have some very strong volatile oils in them. And they're for a lot of plants, especially as the pine needles fall and decay in the soil, they can release initially too much of these volatiles. Although I use pine straw a lot on garden paths and things like that, once it's been rained on and weathered, it's great. But but you see in the forest, there are a lot of plants. I've heard, people talk about, you can't grow anything around the pine trees. If you go look in the forest, you see that there are a lot of friends to the pine. So I don't rule out growing stuff around the pine. And of course, those pine cones, again, in the bottom of that pot, that's not a problem. It's mostly just the fresh pine needles falling that are initially releasing. But look, they're doing that in the fall. Right. And they've got all winter to kind of release and change. And if that soil is good, healthy soil with lots of the microbes and different kinds of microbes in it, they'll neutralize all of that. So it's not too acidic. Right. That's the concern. Oh, the soil is going to be too acidic. But, it just, I don't really find it too much of a problem. Anyway, so there's stuff here on how to deal with your weeds. So let's go on watering. Okay, I want to move on. Let's see what time it is. We're still good. All right, so without maintenance, we kind of went through that. There's a lot more there, but, we don't have all day. What you need to do is get on the database and just go through this according to what you need. Here's how to find online garden resources right here. I love the materials and design section. So there's all kinds of ideas and inspiration.
I imagine you have a section here for compost.
That was in fertilizing.
That was in fertilizing, okay.
Yeah. Was that a question on the chat room or something, or you?
No, that was just me.
Okay.
I was thinking about compost because how it's important. Someone reminded me the other day about walnuts are not a good thing to put in your compost.
True.
And I've always heard that too. It's like they actually become poisonous or something in the composting.
Well, they're releasing some, the shells in particular and the outer husk of the walnut are releasing some of those similar, really strong plant chemicals that just don't break down or and they just see there's all kinds of microbes that are breaking down, they're composting fungi and things like that are breaking it all down. Well, walnut is antifungal, and
so they're at odds with each other.
And if you have a few isn't going to hurt, but if you have a lot of them, then you know
that's not the place to put them.
You want those fungi to be breaking stuff down.
And then I've always heard if you have eat meat, that you don't want to compost meat or bones because it rots. Is that it? It rots in the compost.
Well, that's a little bit controversial because there are people who do that.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to have a problem. But I think that, there again, I think it's the quantity,
Okay.
Because
you would think the bones and the marrow
Yeah.
and the calcium and all that would be
it's
good.
the quantity. And then again, what was the animal eating? There's concern about disease, vectors, if the compost isn't being taken care of well, like not all
Moving it,
compost,
aerating it.
yeah, and heating it up.
Okay.
Some people don't let their compost heat enough.
Right.
So are you doing the hot composting or not? And so, I think if somebody's doing really good, they know what they're doing with the hot composting. They don't have to worry about transmitting disease. And that's more of the
That's
issue.
what I always wondered, because it's like, it just seems like if it has long enough duration to break down, it's just...
Well, it's not so much long enough. It's more the heat, because
there are that heaviness of sitting on top of itself, right?
No, there has to be moisture in it. Like if it's too dry, it doesn't heat up well enough. There's things to it, and if you're keeping it covered, it's like you want to keep it moist, not too moist, and then cover it so that heavy rains don't leach out some of your valuable nutrients.
Right.
So anyway, we're here on, I just added this recently. Flower-rich habitats increase survival of bumblebee families. This is why you want to have lots of flowers, because now the bumblebees are on the extinction list.
Gosh, it's hard to believe. I always feel like I see a lot more bumblebees than I see the honeybees.
Well, now there's a concern. I think I saw something recently in Arkansas where there's a certain risk to bumblebees. Here.
Oh, no.
So let's say here we are in garden design, and you go, well, I really would love to have a butterfly garden.
Yeah.
So this is where it really gets fun, where you can start. Here's all the basics of butterfly gardens. If you want to do a bird garden, and here are some of the herbs that you could grow if you want to make your birds happy. So cosmos, Chinese mallow, calendula, fuchsias. So you could just kind of go through this. A moon garden. Some people like moon gardens. And you have to click on this link. I'm not going to do that because it takes too long on this internet. Perennial garden in the sun. Okay, so you've got a lot of sun and you want a perennial garden that you don't want to have to keep changing. A native garden. A lot of us want to do that. So each one of these is a link on how to, let's say you want water features in your garden. How to build a low maintenance water feature. These are really fun to look at, all these different designs. So I love this one. Wait a minute, where did that go? Here, I don't know if you've seen this. I might have to click on this. Oh, good, it's a video. This is an amazing garden.
Garden for all seasons. Oh, yes. Yes.
This will make you crazy wanting to just
go at it, right? Look at this landscaping and sculpting it.
This garden is amazing. So the Chelsea Gardens in here too, and here are the great gardens of England. So you can really get a lot of ideas from this section, inspiration on what you want to do. Just go through it and have fun. Okay, let's see. Here's a low-cost urban approach. Here's a garden planning app that I like, where you can really lay it all out.
A garden planning app.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask is there an app like to identify a plant? Like, do we have that yet? Where you take a picture of the plant?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I need one of those.
Yeah, just go to the Play Store. You have an iPhone. Yeah, you can just you can get those. Most of them are free. So this one I really like. It's on the web, and it just really lets you play with it and gives you the maintenance schedule and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
How to make a site analysis. This is a section on the native plants of Arkansas, where we are. Let's see, also for Texas, that's kind of close. I won't be able to do this for every state. It just takes up too much. But sustainable gardening, the Royal Botanical Gardens on herb gardening. So you've got a lot of really good ideas here on what materials to use, how to design it. And then we get to lawns. Now, this is a big deal because, first of all, I wish that we didn't have lawns, but just everything was edible landscaping. But we do still have lawns. And so if you do, and you want to make sure that it is not harmful to the environment, because a lot of lawns are maintained with weed killers, herbicides are sprayed, that things like glyphosate, which we know is terrible. And then,
then you're running the lawnmowers.
Yeah, right, yeah. But if you went, well, I do want a lawn, but I want it to be good for the environment and organic. Here's another thing. Let's say you're spraying herbicides on that lawn to keep it, and your kids are going out there and rolling, playing on that lawn. That's bad.
Yeah.
So here's how to do it. What kind of minerals, organic matter, fertilizer, the whole 9 yards. This is a whole great lesson on sustainable turf grass. And again, if you want to get into botany and we go, what in the heck is turf grass? That color is the color for botany. And
turf grass, is that like a golf course?
No, it's what we have in our lawns. That's just a fancy name for
grass.
Lawn grass, kind of grass. Different kinds, there's bluegrass and all these different kinds of grasses, but when it's the kind of grasses we choose to have a lawn made out of, it's called a turf grass.
Turf grass, okay.
So this gets into, this is part of the botany section on grasses. And so here's a turf grass ID tool, all about moisture, the diseases. So you can really learn how to take good care of a lawn in this section if you choose to have one.
And this is lawns that don't necessarily require mowing?
No, you don't get away. Now, if you had a goat.
Okay, now you're a little more organic with it.
Yeah, or if you had a rabbit tractor. Or
a rabbit tractor. Yeah, you got a whole crew of rabbits like the reindeers, Santa and the reindeers. Like, giddy up, little Woody. Go ahead, buddy. Go nibble, nibble, nibble. Nibble, nibble, nibble.
They have rabbit tractors that are like a big metal ball that rolls, and you put the rabbit in it, and it's got.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm serious. There is such a thing as a rabbit tractor.
Okay.
In permaculture, it's one of the permaculture tools.
Right.
And so you put your rabbit in this metal cage ball, and it is eating the grass, and it rolls. It's like it can roll all over the yard, anywhere it wants to go.
Right, wherever it's nibbling.
Yeah, where it's nibbling, and
kind of like a hamster wheel or something.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Okay, so where are we? This is an area that is also important. Organic pest and disease garden management. How do we deal with that? Here's a list of pest repelling plants right here if you want to grow things what it says, repel the plants. Repel the pests, the bugs, and deer and things like that. Rabbits. Here's practical solutions for deer and other pests. This is tough because deer are notorious for finding ways around and over fences and deciding that some of these plants that deer don't eat now are all of a sudden the new gourmet dish of the season. But here are ways to deal with it that work.
All right. But I do want to add my success with deers is you create a deer garden.
Mm-hmm.
You have your gardens.
Yeah.
And you create a deer garden, and you always put in that garden anything you put in yours, and they get it.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. They just get it. They're like, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mess up your fence, and thanks for the lettuce over here. It's my favorite. But they do. They will go to their garden, and it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be as lavish as yours.
Yeah.
But you just, anything you grow and put some seeds over there. And in fact, it's a fun garden because you don't have to tend to it so much. You just let it grow.
I like that. And another thing that you can do is divide your garden up into there's something called square foot gardening. You have like 4x4 bed. And you just fence each of those. And they can't jump into that tiny enclosure.
Right.
So if you have a real problem, you can just make your 4x4 beds that are fenced in such a way that you can open them to do stuff, but deer won't go in.
Yeah, that's true. It's too small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how to deal with fire ants. Now this bacillus is something that is used for disease control. So here's information about this. It's also called BT. And it also is a natural kind of insecticide, but learn about it before you use it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here is another example of how we might kind of trip around in the database. You see over here to the side in another color is insecticide, pesticide poisoning. So this tells us why we want to be really, really careful with what we're using to control pests in the garden. Mm-hmm. These are some of the things that help treat it, but also some of the things that pesticide exposure causes. Just for example, this is a link here. Increased risk of bladder cancer from pesticides. Pesticide poisoning has resulted in 200,000 deaths a year. I like this one. Pesticides are not needed to feed the world, says a new UN report.
Right.
Of course, we know that the pesticides are killing a lot of animals too, and destroying the rivers, the streams, all that. So we don't need them. But let's say you've had some pesticide exposure and you want to offset it. So that's also in here. Here's a study that shows that quercetin and rutin can help reduce, there's something called oxidative stress that happens in the cells from pesticides, and it helps to offset that. Celery extract protects against pesticide toxins. Maca reduces pesticide-induced sperm damage. Now, that's an animal study. May or may not work in people. Ashwagandha helps. Insecticides can affect the cognitive functions in us, some brain damage, and ashwagandha helps prevent that. Pesticide exposures associated with psychological distress and suicide ideation. All kinds of crazy things from pesticides. And so, and then down here, this is an example of how to take a look at this. So here is above the top level, that's part of the repertory. That means different kind of symptoms and diseases. And then down here, we have more color coding. These colored purple are plant chemicals that help to treat this condition, okay? Zinc, a mineral, helps if you know you've been exposed.
Right.
these are some of the really awful
Pesticides.
pesticides. Pretty common, these organochlorine pesticides. I'll click on that in a minute. But also black tea. If you drink black tea, they're not gonna affect you as much. Celery, flower pollen, that's the same thing as bee pollen, maca, and ashwagandha. So these are things that help offset the damage.
What about, do you have in this category somewhere the effects of chemtrails?
Yeah. Not in this category,
right.
But
because I've been wondering lately, outdoor gardening versus greenhouse,
right.
And how the chemtrails are starting to affect our plants.
Yeah. I don't know if I have that much detail in it, but I'll tell you what, we have a show coming up with Jan Wiley of Open Intelligence and the database that they have been building on that kind of thing. So we can cover it in that show.
That would be excellent.
Yeah.
That'd be great if we can the sooner the better while gardening season's happening.
Yeah. And you see over here, everything is associated that's directly linked with this heading right here. So here we see this neon corticoid. That's the kind that's killing off the bees. That's a pesticide. Kids' behavior issues is strongly associated with pesticides poisoning. And here's how to remove pesticides from food. Okay. So
imagine what do they call it? The service that comes to the houses, termite and pest control.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's pesticides.
Yeah, they're bad.
And we're not questioning that as much because it's not being sprayed over our fields, but it's happening at every individual house.
Terrible. So I'm going to click on this organophosphate, and you see some of them. Parathion, and then, of course, if you wanted to read more, here's some links. Now, just to remind you, if you're new to this, these top links here, they look a little different. You can click on it, and it'll open a tab. But down here, this link, kind of a link in this lower text area, you're going to have to right-click and tell it to open the link in a new tab. Because if I click on this link just directly, it's going to take me out of the database. Okay, so anyway, these organophosphates attack the nervous system in the same way as nerve agents like sarin. Really bad stuff. Terrible for the thyroid. If you remember in the thyroid show, we were talking about how people who do a lot of farming and working around these pesticides have these terrible thyroid problems. But looky here, kimchi helps. You know what kimchi is?
I've heard it, but I can't place it. Is it the mushroom that we grow?
No, this is a type of Korean fermented food. And
I'm thinking of, how we used to ferment the mushrooms.
Oh, you're thinking of kombucha?
Kombucha.
No, kimchi is like it's just fermented vegetables, usually pretty hot. These are all articles about kimchi, and then we see all of the healing benefits of kimchi. These are all studies. For example, a compound found in kimchi is superior to simvastatin in inhibiting atherosclerosis, an animal study, but still, kimchi versus a statin drug. Kimchi does better.
Are you saying kimchi? Okay, it's a fermented cabbage.
Yeah, but it's got other things too. Radishes, peppers. There are different kimchi. I'll show you in a second. There are a lot of different vegetables in it. So
it's amazing how much medicine we have on this planet.
Yeah. So here, if you wanted to make it at home, another good thing to start doing is fermenting your vegetables. These are different kimchi recipes. So you can make a cubed radish kimchi. I like this one is out of cucumbers and nasturtiums. You can make it out of cucumbers or just stinging nettles. And when you're done, you could have a peanut butter and kimchi sandwich, plum kimchi. So you see but up here, again, remember, everything it's connected to directly to this one right in the middle
Kimchi.
is an important association. So up at the top, there's that scroll bar again.
Right.
And up here, we see that it helps with this kind of pesticide. And it's anti-allergy. It helps with arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis, colon cancer, detoxing bisphenols, BPA. We'll do a show on toxins sometime. Plants is one of the plants for cancer therapy. It's actually not a plant, it's a mixture.
Wow, look
of
at this. It's amazing.
It's a probiotic. It helps lose weight, prevent overweight, and it's in the fermented vegetables category.
I wanted to ask you about what is it that's so medicinal about fermentation?
Well,
Because you see that a lot, especially in the probiotics.
well, if we go to fermented vegetables, we go up to fermented foods. Okay, and let's just, this is the kind of question that comes to us. This is why the database is built this way.
Exactly.
Because we read something and we have a question in our mind, like, like you said, why we've gone now from, herb gardening, and here we are in fermented foods, and it's very natural and easy to get these things answered. Now, of course, we go in depth too, so obviously
there's a lot
depends on how much you want to learn about it, but anywhere you start is going to help you begin to get something important. This is an example of one of the recipes that's in here of a fermented dish. So they can be really beautiful, but let's just go up here and take a look at this. So a lot of this is instruction on how to do it. And
probably explains within it the value of fermentation.
Yeah, so
but I'm picking your brain right now, D'Coda.
I know. So so we see down here it's associated with probiotics. So fermented foods are the kind of probiotic we can make ourselves instead of buying in the store. And we'll have to do a show on probiotics sometime because it's pretty interesting.
And that is prominent in people's consciousness right now. Health consciousness.
So these are all articles on probiotics. Again, up here you could just click on it, and down here these you'd have to do a right click. Now it's not always a silver bullet, but what they do is basically, and this gets into everything about the gut microbiome. The probiotics are the foods that feed those are the prebiotics. The probiotics are the actual gut microbes that are supposed to be in the human body. And the gut microbiome or gut flora is like bacteria, even viruses and other things they're like the chemical factory of the body to a great extent. And they play a huge role in controlling the immune system. They break down food and turn it into the kind of nutrients we need. A lot of the B vitamins, for example, are made by certain bacteria in the gut, and if you don't have them, you're not making B vitamins. This kind of gets back to what we were talking about before with the fertilizing of the corn so that it doesn't need the mycorrhizae anymore. The mycorrhizae are the fungi that feed the corn, the minerals. Well, in us, we've got we're supposed to have thousands of different kinds of bacteria that are working together intelligently inside the digestive system, primarily. There are some that live in the stomach, but primarily the lower part of the digestive system. And they make serotonin, they make vitamins, they take minerals and make them bioavailable. They can even tear apart molecules to make different kinds of minerals, supposedly. So, and they're in constant communication with the whole body. So they know what's going on in the body and what we need more of and what we need less of. Mm-hmm. So there's been a saying in herbalism forever that all disease begins in the gut. Right. And what we're learning now, the reasons there's so much talk about probiotics is that we realize that we really messed this up because we've been killing off the bacteria. We had this big war on bacteria, right? Mm-hmm. Right. All bacteria is bad, and we need to take lots of antibiotics. And there was a war on it, on germs, and we did all these crazy things to eliminate it. And then we were eating foods that they couldn't live on. Uh-huh. So now in this world, we're finding we have desperate to figure out how to replace. Right. Every human being has a different makeup. It's like there's an individual fingerprint to your gut microbiome that nobody else has. And it's passed on through the mother primarily, especially if it was a cesarean section, you're in trouble because the bacteria from the mother isn't passed on the way it should be. You're not inoculated. Anyway, so there's
But are you equating probiotic to fermentation? Are they?
Yeah, because fermentation is where lactobacilli. There's lactobacillus fermentation. That's a healthy type of bacteria that is like you have in yogurt. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole bunch of different lactobacilli type of bacterias. Mm-hmm. And so, and we want a whole lot of them, a variety.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was good. Yeah, we do need a whole show on probiotics.
So anyway, let's see where we are. We've got half an hour, and let's go back here and see where it.
Now, are you wanting to share any story today? Depends how.
Well, I will share a couple of gardening stories. Mm-hmm. A warning to people who live out in the woods. Be careful about, understand your environment, where you're living, and that not all garden advice is good for the same locales. Right. For example, I had been studying my gardening books I grew a lot of tomatoes and had issues with different kinds of tomato diseases, especially fungal. And I read in a gardening book that one way to prevent fungal infections in tomatoes was to spray them with milk. Well, I didn't have milk. I had dry powdered milk, though, in a bucket. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to use it myself. And I thought, here's a perfect use for this dry milk. I'm just going to mix it up in some water and spray it on the tomato plants and see what happens. So I go out there, and I usually grew about 200 tomato plants. So we're talking about a fair amount of time spraying tomato plants with milk. Right. And so next day I come back and all of my tomato plants are gone.
Oh, you made it delicious for someone.
The bear paws all over it. The bear came in and went, "Where's the milk?" Now, he didn't necessarily eat all of the tomato plants. Yeah. But he knew there was milk somewhere, and it was hidden somewhere in all these tomato plants.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so
that's great.
Certain things like that.
You got to know you have to know your environment and what those critters like.
And who the garden pests are. The bears were probably one of my worst garden pests. Oh. And next in line were probably the turtles. Well, no, the deer were kind of a problem, but the turtles were. If you're growing strawberries and you have turtles, it's not a good mix.
You'd have to do the bucket
bucket
preparation with those strawberries.
Yes. So if you notice that, of course, birds will go after them too, but turtles.
They like strawberries.
My God, they love strawberries.
I never thought of them as liking fruits, more greens.
Yeah, no, they love strawberries. I can testify to that.
And we're talking about like the little boxed turtles?
Yeah, well,
or snaps.
They were, I'm
the big ones?
I'm not sure what kind they were, but you can't really see my hands. But anyway, they were pretty good size.
Yeah.
And they always found their way into the garden to,
of course,
to eat it. And so I grew a lot of strawberries, but I didn't get to harvest very many.
Yeah, you needed that vertical.
Yeah.
Vertical gardening.
But I was kind of happy to feed the turtle. I mean,
Sure.
I love the turtles, so, that's one of
I
those
know,
things.
that's the trade-off.
Yeah. Another gardening tip for people who live out, here in the Ozarks and places like the Ozarks, Appalachian's not too different. If you have nice, soft garden soil, and it's the summertime and it's kind of hot, and especially if you're using mulch, but not necessarily a lot of mulch, but just nice, loose soil, your snakes are going to really like to dig down into that soil and hang out under the soil. And you have to be kind of careful about that too, because one day I had a visitor who came down. She was scared of the wilderness and, really scared of snakes. People that came down there, so many people were really scared of snakes. And it was so funny because the weirdest things would happen to those people. So she came out to the garden with me and she wanted to help me with some gardening, and it was time to plant the peas. And so I said, well, here's where I'm going to plant them. And I always just took my hand and dug the furrow with my hand. You just planting peas, you don't need a tool. You just stick your fingers down there and pull the soil back.
Yeah.
And so this is the first thing I'm going to show her, right? This poor scared woman. And she comes in, she's very timid, and she's standing there, just scared to be in the wilderness. And I'm going to show her how easy and safe it is, right? So I've got these peas, and I said, now look, this is what we're going to do. And I stick my hand in the soil, and it didn't feel right. And I pull my hand up, and I've got the head of a copperhead snake in my hand.
Oh, no, you grabbed it?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So when you felt something weird, you knew to...
Well, no, I had the snake.
You just had it because you
I
had your
lifted
hand.
my hand up. You pull your hand up, you lift your hand up, and there's a copperhead snake, and it's like its head is in my hand.
And did you grasp it by the neck, or is it just the head?
It's just, I
the head is in your hand. You didn't hold it.
No, I felt it was weird, and
it didn't attack you?
I was friends with all of my snakes.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
But she didn't do very well with the
bet.
gardening that day.
Oh.
And weird things with snakes like that tended to only happen when there were people around who were scared of snakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of encounters with them in the garden. I used snakes. I relied on snakes as garden helpers. That's one of the things to learn to do is don't work against nature, work with it. And a lot of these things maintain a balance, like the snakes go after grasshoppers. They love the grasshoppers and a lot of the insects and the mice and things like that. And so I was always happy to let the snakes do their thing. And they knew it. They knew that I was not the enemy, that we were all gardening together. It was community gardening. And so I had wide beds, usually about 4 feet wide. And I always sat on the ground when I was, I worked by hand mostly.
Yeah.
And so I would be tending to something on one side of the 4-foot bed, and there would be a rattlesnake tending to something on the other side of the 4-foot bed. And we would just kind of, it's like, okay, I'm here doing this, and the rattlesnake's going, I'm over here doing this.
Right, because it's basically, if you're not disturbing or threatening a snake, they don't,
No, and they know you.
Yeah.
They know you. They know who you are, and they know if you're a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can feel the vibration or something of what's around them, and they're very aware that way. And so just staying calm around the snakes. They were calm with me. And one day I even stepped barefoot on a copperhead, and I was sorry, and it was sorry, and that was the end of the story. It was like, this happens. We're gardening together. You're going to get in each other's way a little bit.
Yeah.
But one of the ways I would cut weeds and things like that is I would run a knife under the soil, just right under the soil, so I could leave the roots in the soil to decay in the soil and build soil, right? Mm-hmm. And I discovered another one of my summer snake stories was I was running a knife under, and there was a snake under that knife, and it cried. And
really made a sound.
Made a sound, and so then that's another reason why I'm big on no-till. And I found lizards under the soil. There's a certain type of bees that live under the soil. So I just went. I'm not getting in there. I'm just going to build on top, let them do their thing underneath, and
nice.
Yeah.
One of the experiences I've always had in all my snake experiences here in the Ozarks is that I'll be walking a path, and at the consciousness, I'll get a ding, and the consciousness is totally present. I know in that moment there's a snake nearby. Mm-hmm. It's like they have a big presence.
Yeah.
And usually, I learn to, when I'm really in the thick of the woods, to walk with a cane or something. You just tap the ground, let the snakes know, I don't want to scare you. You don't want to scare me. But that's basically the message that I share. Every time one's right underfoot, it's that moment I'm startled, but then it's that moment of, okay, I respect you. How shall we do this? How shall I proceed? I can go this way, you can go that way. But there is, I always get the message.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool the way that works.
So let me think of.
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to add about stories, or did you want to go back?
No, there is another thing.
Yeah.
One of the other things I learned the hard way was I grew a lot of blueberries, and I had some bird netting to put over them to keep the birds out. And I learned not to do that either, because the bird netting did two things. I constantly found snakes tangled up in the netting. Yes. Because the snakes climb up, especially the black snakes, they climb up, they get in that netting.
Yep.
And it's teeny.
I had that experience.
Yeah.
And it was, I didn't like it. The snake got all tangled up and it was a copperhead.
Oh, yeah. And then sometimes birds would too. And one time, so I did a terrible thing. I took the netting down and I put it in the corner of the garden and left it there. And I had this relationship with the intelligence of the forest that I call the presence, where it would talk to me and tell me what was going on, like it does everything there.
Right.
And I was in bed one morning, and it told me I had to get up because there was a problem in the garden, and it showed me where it was. And it did this fairly often. Yeah. And I learned that I had to do that, and I went out there and saw him where the netting was, and there was a turtle caught in the netting. Another time it was a snake caught. So you don't even leave.
Yeah, you don't even leave it out. That's kind of like what's happening with the rings that go around a 6-pack.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
seen so many animals tangled in that, or the nets in the ocean.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we have to be attentive to, but that is a good reminder, because that was not a good experience for me either when I saw it. You know, the netting was put over the garden to protect you from deer.
Uh-huh.
And what? And then there's a copperhead all tangled up in it. It was not a pretty sight.
No.
Yeah.
So being aware of the what we're doing, let me see what. Well, there's one thing I didn't show that I want to go back to. Okay. Because I think it's one of
we are coming towards the end of our session.
I'm just going to show this real fast. Right. I want to show under soil requirements. I'm going to lower this all the way.
What are we looking at?
I want to show you something to make things easy for you to figure out where you're going to plant things. I'm going to soil.
Okay.
And there's also sun requirements. So let's say you've got, I'm going to go to soil requirements right here. Mm-hmm. And you've got all these different kinds of soil. So let's say you're, in terms of the moisture, anything that is dry, but it might have a little water in it. So here are plants, these are herbs that would do well in dry soil, or, might have a little bit of moisture, medium. So they'll do well in either one. Mm-hmm. So that's like goldenrod and the wild indigos, different kinds of onions. And so you could just go through this and go, okay, well, I figured out that my soil is kind of average, but it gets pretty wet. And so what might grow well in that kind of soil? Mm-hmm. And now you can see all these herbs would do fine in soil that's just kind of average, but it can get wet.
Right.
So this helps you pick out what to
really
grow. Let's say you have a loamy, rich, moist soil. You know, we talked about how most of the herbs don't really like that. Mm. But if that's what you have, grow these herbs. Mm-hmm. Marshmallows.
What's the word loamy? What's that mean?
That's where you have like a lot of that kind of aggregate where it's like, it feels soft and fluffy.
Yes. Okay.
So anyway, I just wanted to show this section because this I think is really important. Also the sun, I'll quickly show the sun requirements. If you have sandy soil, clay, all of that kind of thing.
That's especially important here in the Ozarks. Yeah. And then I guess like out in New Mexico, clay. That's a very unique, and I was always taught you have to add sand.
No. Not really. No, there's some problems with that. Anyway, we're running out of time. So folks, just come to the database and you can go through all this. But let's say sun requirements. Let's say you've got full shade and you want to know what you can grow in that, or medium shade, or full sun. Let's just go, or let's say it's hot, dry, sunny area. What could you grow there? That sounds like a problem. Mm-hmm. These could all grow in a hot, dry, sunny area. Okay.
Well, gosh, I didn't put I see a couple of herbs there, and I gave them not hot, dry.
Some of them, some of them will do well in other situations too, so it's not like, but that would be there first. Yeah, let's say you've got a shade area, but you've got a lot of shade. Mm-hmm. So these are herbs that will do fine where it's shady. Bloodroot, angelica, anise hyssop. So hyssop likes sun too, but these will all grow and do well for you where it's shady. So this is just a way. Let's say it's part shade to full sun. You could go through all of these light shade, filtered shade. Yeah. And there's more than
that's pretty cool.
That, but it just helps you figure out. You look at it, go, well, I've got this kind of condition. I've got really wet soil and a lot of shade. What can I do? Mm-hmm. I've got sunny and excellent drainage. The sun is steady, but low intensity. So cardamom would do well there. So let's say you want to grow cardamom. Well, you're going to look for this kind of a place in your garden.
Mhm.
So anyway, I think I better stop now because we're running out of time.
Well,
Okay.
and then once again, it's the herbal.
Go to subscribe to the database. Go to herbaldatabase.org. It's a membership, and the first month is only $5, and then it's just $15 a month, and you will have access to, as you'll discover, a great deal of information very quickly. You're not going to waste a lot of time Googling around for things that aren't helpful.
Right. And if you want to listen to this video again, the archive is at consciousconsumernetwork.tv, and just look up Herbal Knowledge Keepers, and you'll see all 9 of our episodes are there, including the introduction that really breaks down the database and demonstrates how that is done. And again, we want to thank consciousconsumernetwork.tv, our co-producers, Biggie and Mel. Very grateful for providing this platform. And if you go to their main page, please make a contribution, help this network stay present to us, especially in these times. We need people who are representing good information, good education, solutions for each one of us, and having a abundant and prosperous life on this planet. So thank you for that. And next week, I'll be back, co-host with Rebecca Hahn, bringing you Get Lit. In the meantime, send you lots of love, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And D'Coda, any parting words you'd like to say?
Well, stay tuned for a very exciting Herbal Knowledge Keeper show coming up, our next one in a couple weeks. We had a fantastic interview with Will Morris, who many of you know, fabulous in Chinese medicine, an instructor, very well known. We're going to be talking about medical astrology, and it's pretty surprising, actually.
Yeah, it was a really fascinating call.
Yeah, so that'll be in a couple of weeks, and then, like I said, we're going to be talking with Open Intelligence about their fabulous databases, analyzing information about the effects of the environment on health. So thank you all for watching, and please let us know if there are any topics that you would like for us to cover on a future show. God bless.
Yeah. Peace.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.